Great, thank you so much. All right, welcome everyone to our first poster session. I hope that you are awake and ready. It's 7 p.m. here in the UK, and wherever Bernhard is, it looks like it's later. So I hope that you're all doing okay. So I am Jennifer Gibson. I'm with eLife and also the chair of OASPA, and it is my pleasure to facilitate our 3 poster sessions this week. The poster session / lightning talk is an opportunity for us to kind of get the latest and pretty cool developments 10 at a time. Each of our presenters has 4 minutes to speak, and I share my screen, and I'm absolutely unforgiving with respect to keeping time. So we just keep things trotting along, but we do break a few times for questions. So the order of the presentations is as advertised in the program for the conference. So we are going to start off in just a moment with Emily Farrell, and then followed by Tony Alves, and then Bernhard Mittermaier. So we'll do 3 and then we'll pause. And after the first break, we'll do Kevin, Yaroon, Melissa / Sarah, and then Maria. So buckle your seatbelts. I'm going to share my screen in just a second. For anyone who's just joining the conference, you're very, very welcome. I think we've had over 600 people join, and we've had over 200 people in each of our events so far. We've got people from all over the world. I'm going to show you that display in just a second. And your questions are very welcome in the Q&A channel on the Zoom, as opposed to the chat channel. The chat channel's for people to introduce themselves if you haven't introduced yourself yet, and any other comments. But to flag something as a question for the presenters, please put it in the Q&A, and I will grab it when we have that moment. And then afterward, it feels like there's a lot of engagement, a lot of discussion ongoing at the end of each of our sessions so far, and we want to carry that on in Slack. So please join us there at the end of the session. Okay, so that's going to be Emily, and then Tony, and then Bernhard. And I will share my screen, beginning with a view of the participants with us here at the conference. So thank you, Bernie, for this. And you'll see in the Slack channel and the other materials a link to menti.com. So if you haven't logged in to log your location, please do, because this is quite cool. Thank you. Okay, I've got my timer, and I'm going to hand it over to our first presenter.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. All right, I'm going to race straight into it. So I'm talking about the MIT Press Direct to Open model, which was built in response to the need we saw for a greater move to open access for our Monographs program, where monographs remain central to the research endeavour, particularly for humanities and social sciences, but have become more challenging to sustain under traditional market models, and we wanted to make things more open. So we as a press have long experimented and innovated with digital publishing and publish on topics at the intersection of science, technology, and society. As a non-profit university press, we report into the MIT libraries. We're part of an institution that's been forward thinking on open access, for instance, in being an early adopter of an institute-wide open access policy in 2009. The MIT Press received a grant from the Arcadia Fund in 2019 to develop a business model that would allow us to move our frontlist monographs open access on publication. We work closely with a consultant, Rain Crow, to examine revenue streams for monographs and make predictions about the future trends. And together we've built an incentivized library collective action model that we're calling Direct to Open, which we're working to implement for our 2022 program, so next year. So what is Direct to Open? Direct to Open asks libraries to come together with the press to fund open access monographs. If we reach our financial threshold, we'll open around 90 monographs in 2022 on publication. So libraries acting together will contribute to the common good of opening these books, and in turn, as an incentive, receive access to the back file of monographs on our platform through the end of 2022. So that's around 2,500 books. Participating libraries get that access even if the model isn't successful. So if there are no open access books, participating libraries won't pay the fee and still gain access to the back file. And in addition, they get discounting on our trade book collection We've made pricing transparent with a granular pricing structure that you can see here in very small lettering, which enables the lowest tiers to be in reach for smaller institutions. And we're seeing a lot of different types and sizes of libraries participate because of that. We also wanted to find a way to reach a partial threshold. So we created 2 sub-collections, Humanities and Social Sciences and STEM, or STEAM, so STEM plus Art and Design. And libraries can choose to support one or both. The goal for the model is to replace partial direct costs to make sure our program is sustainable. So the fees in the table that you see are the maximum an institute would pay, and any additional funds either cascade from one collection to the other, or they're redistributed at the end once we reach our deadline. Most importantly, moving to a library collective model, we move away from book processing charges. So there won't be a burden on authors to cover costs when they want to make their book open. It will just go open thanks to an international collective of libraries. So far, the progress. The most important part, we've reached 102 participating libraries and counting. So we're seeing more every day. 48 are for 3 years. We have support from MIT libraries with additional funds we're using to subsidize the smaller institutions. We're also working with a growing number of consortia worldwide, which helps us to amplify what we're doing. And as of this week, we're just past 30% of the goal. Challenges that we've faced have both been expected and unexpected. We didn't expect a global pandemic. And the ensuing acceleration of library budget contraction, other interconnected challenges, communication, fragmentation across libraries, the need for different decision makers to be involved in OA funding decisions, capacity both in the press and for libraries to consider these sorts of these new models. Lots of opportunities to helping to shift a broker model, more equitability for access, and strengthening the connections and feedback we're getting from libraries and consortia. What's next? We're going to extend the deadline. Initially, we'd set it at the end of September. We're moving it to the end of November because we have libraries asking for extra time, and we need extra time. We are continuing discussions with libraries. We're turning on access for libraries that have already committed to supporting the model, so they get a little bit of extra access to the end of the year. And we're also finalising a public report on the model, which we'll make available on the PubPub platform in November so that other presses can review it and consider adopting the model themselves. Thank you.
Perfect. Nicely done. Thank you, Emily. Tony, you're on deck.
Thank you very much. So cascading workflows have become commonplace within publishing organizations. Similarly, with the rise of preprint servers as an acceptable source of new submissions, some publishers have implemented mechanisms allowing for manuscripts to flow from preprint servers to appropriate journals in a publisher's collection. In addition, there is a desire to include comments when an article is transferred from the preprint server to the journal. This includes peer review from pre-publication peer review services like Review Commons, Pre-Review, PCI, and others, along with the reader comments that are associated with the preprints. The challenge is that each participating preprint server system must develop multiple pairwise solutions for each and every submission that they need to talk to, and vice versa. In 2017, a group of manuscript management suppliers took up the challenge and developed a common approach to manuscript data and file exchange called Manuscript Exchange Common Approach, or MECA. This group developed a specification that laid out the protocols for packaging up and sending manuscript files and data in a machine-readable format. Also, the specification includes the protocols that would allow the system to ingest that package and create a submission record in their system. In 2018, this group submitted a proposal to the National Information Standards Organization, NISO, to codify this file and data transfer protocol. NISO accepted the proposal, and a working group, including representatives from across scholarly publishing, was formed. This initiative produced a set of guidelines and best practices that publishers, manuscript systems, and preprint servers can all utilize to transfer data and files. One thing that is particularly unique about this approach is the inclusion of peer review data in the transfer package. The article metadata file is in JATS XML format. However, JATS doesn't currently handle peer review data. The MECA team has outlined a new XML format that uses the principles of JATS, but extends it for peer review. While the article XML file contains information about the most recent version of the article being transferred, the review XML contains multiple reviews from all revisions of the submission. The MECA recommended practice was approved on June 26, 2020. It was published July 6, 2020. And a standing committee has now been established to take up the following activities: promotion and education of the current recommended practice. That's what I'm doing right now. Evolution of the specification to include updated protocols and technology, non-English language support, and most relevant to this presentation, integration with efforts by JATS4R, STM review taxonomy, and the DocMaps initiative to better enable the easy exchange of peer review comments and data. As these different initiatives mature and a common standard for creating a machine readable record of peer review information is agreed upon, MECA will likely incorporate that into the current specification, possibly replacing the current modified peer review JATS schema. And that's my presentation.
You bought us 34 seconds, Tony. Thank you. The rest of us appreciate that. Thank you. All right, Bernhard, over to you, please.
Hello, everybody. Transformative agreements increased the share of gold open access articles, and this is something that most people will think is a good thing. But on the other hand, there are fears associated with transformative agreements. One of them is that transformative agreements might be a threat to fully open access publishers. This is something the OASPA Fully OA Journal Publishers Interest Groups said in June this year. Another fear is that transformative agreements with big publishers might be a threat to small publishers. This is something the German Publishers Association Börsenverein keeps telling us at the Deal project. They always say that we are a threat to smaller publishers. And on the other hand, there is a hope that transformative agreements would help to transform the subscription-based business models into gold open access business models. Now, what did I do? I downloaded the publication output of Germany, Austria, and Switzerland from the last 5 years, took that as a basis, and grouped the publication according to country, publisher, and publication year. And then for each year and country, the publisher was assigned either as Gold OA publisher, as a transformative agreement publisher, or as a subscription publisher. One was a transformative agreement publisher if I estimated that the output of publications from that respective publisher in the respective country exceeded 50%. So very small transformative agreements were not taken into account. That publisher was considered to be a subscription publisher. Now, what were the results? I shall go to the diagram and start with the total number of publications in orange. The increase was varying over the years with an average of 3.4%. The subscription output in gray was similar, but normally always a bit smaller than the total output, the increase. And it's interesting, in the year 2020, there was a decrease in subscription output of 4.2%. Transformative agreements in blue had a large increase in the year 2016, but this was only due to Austria, where transformative agreements came into place already that early. Later on, the increase was rather low. And Gold OA outperformed all other business models. You see this golden line. We had an increase of 19.4% on average over all these years. And so the first fear that transformative agreements are a threat to fully OA publishers is not real. Then we have the combination of Elsevier, Springer Nature, and Wiley, the three big ones, decreased from 40% to 33%. So it's not a threat to small publishers. And the third thing, at Springer Nature, the share of fully OA journals decreased over the period of time. So transformative agreements do not help to transform subscription-based business models, at least at Springer Nature. The picture at Wiley, for example, is different. Many thanks.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So would Emily, Tony also like to join us on screen and take a look at those questions? Can I confess, I find it really difficult to keep time and to keep up with the Q&A at the same time. So anyone who's a master at that, please do jump in. Okay, so.
The question to me.
Yeah, go for it, Tony.
Okay, so yes, Alex, the MECA protocol can really be used at any point to transfer information about the article, including all of the peer review. It is the Manuscript Exchange Common Approach Protocol is really just a protocol, an outlined protocol that tells organizations how to package up that content and how the receiving organization should expect to receive that content. And it's up to the sending organization to send what they want in that prescribed format. And it's up to the receiving organization to receive whatever they want out of that package. The beauty of it is that they know what to expect as far as what format everything is in and how it's going to get to them. So it can really be used for any part of the process. It can be used in the production process. It could be used at any point in workflow. So it's really just a communication protocol and definition. I think that answers.
Thanks, Tony. Thank you. And thanks, Bernie, for monitoring the question box. So Emily, we've got a couple for you. Could you tell us how direct to open is different from both Knowledge Unlatched and Opening the Future?
Yes. So knowledge, the ways that it's different to both of those models, something that they share in common is the collective approach, in that it's sort of encouraging collective behaviour. One of the major differences between Knowledge Unlatched and the direct to open model is this sort of comprehensive approach, the fact that we are, rather than sort of focusing on a single title approach, we are trying to work comprehensively across our Monographs program. So that sort of is different in scale, but also in approach, in that we're not necessarily focusing on the subject level or the individual title. And then there's something else I was going to say there, but I lost it. And then in terms of Opening the Future, that's the model that Central European University Press is implementing. There are similarities there as well. Something that Knowledge Unlatched doesn't use is this incentivized back file. So having access to that as an incentive to participate is something that the Opening the Future model has. But the major difference between, they're sort of flipped, if you like. So we're focusing on funding the front list and the back list as part of the incentive. Whereas if I understand it correctly, and I'm sure that perhaps Francis or Martin-Eve are here and can speak to it, but or answer questions in Slack, that it's funding backlist for front list opening. I think that's the correct way around it. But in essence, the report that we're putting out in November will have a clearer comparison that you can read through, and it will be much more articulate than I am right now.
Thanks so much, Emily. Okay, do you have any questions for one another? Anything? I know when you're in presenting mode, you've kind of got a singular focus. Okay. All right. Let's carry on. So for each of the presenters, if there's anything more that you want to add, please do so in the chat, in the Slack. I think you've already shared your poster files. So if you want to build on that with anything that you didn't get the chance to say today, please don't hesitate. We are going now to move on. We are going to do Kevin, Yaroon, and then Melissa/Sarah and Maria. And then we're going to have another break, after which the order will be Mandy, Emma, and Kathleen. So bear with. Kevin, is that you?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, over to you.
Okay, hi all. This is my first OASPA, so thanks for having me. Today I'm going to take a little bit of a different tack from what you've heard from so far and talk about some work I did integrating open science education into an undergraduate course. So at the University of Saskatchewan, we have a first-year research experience program, which actually allows first-year undergraduate students in different colleges and departments to have an opportunity to practice research across every stage of the life cycle, which results in a final project of some sort. Because I am the librarian for nutrition, I saw an opportunity to integrate the idea of incorporating open science education and exposing undergraduates to open science education at this early stage. So in the nutrition program, students are asked to complete a poster based on a survey of nutrition that's administered to the entire university campus. And in doing that, students actually have to reach a number of checkpoints. So you can see this in the diagram at the center of the poster, where students have to create a research question and justification, submit survey questions they're going to analyze, draft an introduction and method section of the poster, complete data analysis, and present that poster in a poster showcase to anyone who wants to attend within the institution. And my idea was to first provide introductory training into open science and then have them take each of those checkpoints and actually think about making them accessible and open to the public. So at each checkpoint, you'll see that students, when they created a research justification or question, had to upload that research question to the open science framework. And after each checkpoint within the open science framework, we would have a debrief and feedback session where students can share their experience with doing it, and I could provide them with feedback on thinking about public access to information and the research products that they're creating throughout the life cycle. So the goal here was not only to make it accessible, but also interpretable to others, as well as the classmates in their course. So you can see here, they created a data dictionary, they had to create a data analysis plan and share it, all up to the final point, which was sharing their poster and considering licensing as well. So the hour-and-a-half session began before that session, and then they incorporated all of that learning they did in the 1.5-hour workshop training into those different checkpoints. After the course was complete, students were asked to complete a reflection assignment, asking them to reflect on the positive and negative aspects of open science now that they've practiced it, to indicate whether or not they would consider practicing open science in the future and explain why or why not, and to describe the impact of what they thought open science would have on the future of research in their field. So some of the positive reported experiences were the idea of research transparency, the ability to hold themselves accountable, and the improved accessibility of research projects as some of those key positive reported aspects. Whereas the negative reported aspects in those assignments were the amount of time it took to make all the research open and understandable to others, the fear of being scooped even by their classmates, as well as someone misinterpreting or misusing their research in some way. In terms of the impact they saw on the future of open science and research, it's really they're hoping to see a culture change. They saw potentially the increase for collaboration across disciplines and generally an increase in public access to information. In terms of the next steps for this project, it's been renewed for another year, so I'll be teaching this again within the Faculty of Nutrition, but we're also looking to expand this program to other areas such as geography, the humanities, and some other physical sciences groups that are supporting this FIRE program currently. So I hope that this has given you an indication of some of the work that we can do as librarians specifically in encouraging open science at an early stage of research. And I'm happy to answer questions, and feel free to reach out to me if you'd like to know more about the project. So thanks for your time.
Thank you. Welcome to OASPA. Yaroon.
Yes, thank you, Jennifer, and nice to be here at OASPA 2021. About a year ago, we realized that, at least in the Netherlands, though we are quite successful in raising the OA article share, we tend to sort of forget the qualitative aspects of open access. So we, and that is 3 librarians from Utrecht and the open science officer from the largest Dutch research funder, we set out to list and describe those aspects. They are detailed in an article, but more importantly for now, they are in the top left quadrant of this poster. And we discern between 2 types of qualitative aspects, and that is broadening and deepening. And within those, you see, for instance, for broadening, that it is about looking at more than just universities' output. For instance, also looking at government research departments. And it is about looking at more than just journal articles, so more document types, for instance, monographs, conference proceedings, but also things like reference works. It is also about looking retrospectively, so looking at open access to back files. And finally, for broadening, it is also about making sure that open access is immediate, so doing away with embargoes. For deepening, we listed no fees, so that is working towards non-APC open access, making sure that open access is also open licensed. Making sure that we pay more attention to open access via more radically modern platforms, also platforms that do disaggregated publishing, guaranteeing that we have open metadata and open infrastructure, and also having open review options more abundantly available. But of course, in listing these 9 aspects, that would constitute just a wish list. So that's why we created also a framework to promote this and to work with this. We based that loosely on Brian Nozick's pyramid for advancing change. You see that on the right. I hope that is legible. The framework has 3 dimensions. So it is about these 9 aspects we like to see change on. It is about the various actors, such as funders, institutions, societies, etc. And crucially, there is also a dimension that discerns between setting goals, setting policies, promoting, rewarding, and supporting those 5. That framework can be used for discussing, just simply discussing, but also for evaluating, prioritizing, planning, collaborating, or agenda setting. It is quite flexible, and we also shared an adaptable version of that framework for everyone to use. The link to that is in the bottom blue bar, and will also be in Slack, and I hope also in chat by now. On the bottom left of the poster, you see how we populated that framework with the data for the Netherlands as an example. And we used also Utrecht University as an example university in that. This is just a very small snapshot of the full framework. It shows what is already in place in terms of in terms of policies and funding, etc. Also, it shows, of course, many gaps, many no's here, but that is important, because looking at those gaps, you can, if progress on a certain aspect is limited, the framework could make it clearer what could be the cause and what could still be done to improve that situation. So on the bottom right, finally, we have some information about publishers, because interestingly, publishers are not in that populated framework bottom left. We left them out as they are mainly seen as service providers. But of course, they are important actors that can implement innovations and can support it and advance the quality of open access. 5 things that publishers could do is indeed implement open access for books, looking at their back files and making those full open access, ideally without too much cost, of course. Engage more with Diamond Open Access. We see some progress there. Implement those metadata standards that are available, and allow and implement open peer review across their full offering. So in conclusion, let's promote quality by implementing innovations, and by that not only have a large percentage of open access, but also have high quality of open access. Our framework is a tool that might help guide that transition. Details to the openly shared poster are in the blue bottom on the bottom of the blue bar on the bottom of the poster, and the poster is also available in Zenodo with everything clickable. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Yaroon. I can thank Tony for your extra minute. Tony, thank you. So Sarah, I've got you here somewhere, I think. Are you presenting or is it Melissa?
We're presenting together.
Okay, great. Then please go ahead.
All right, so Melissa and I are presenting on our poster, Assessing the Open Ethos, a look at the global landscape of open access journal publishing through copyright and licensing practices. More authors and publishers are turning to open access as a way to promote and disseminate and reuse of scholarly outputs. But the way that publishers enable open access and navigate complexities such as copyright can create wide variances in practice. We therefore wanted to take a deeper look at open access publishing agreements to see how well open access journals are contractually aligning with the open access ethos, or not. In order to accomplish this, we needed journal contracts, which are typically not available online. Using journal data from the Directory of Open Access Journals, DOAJ, we conducted our research in 2 phases. First, looking at journals that have a DOAJ seal, then looking at journals without a DOAJ seal. And the DOAJ awards the DOAJ seal to journals that, quote, demonstrate best practice in open access publishing, end quote. And that accounts for roughly 10% of journals indexed in the DOAJ. We used a script created by Chris Hallberg of Villanova University to find email contacts for journals indexed in the DOAJ, and then wrote to those contacts asking them to participate in a Qualtrics survey. The Qualtrics survey asked for basic journal metadata and asked the contact to upload an author agreement or contract for their journal. We then read and analyzed the contracts, hand-coding the responses into a spreadsheet that focused on rights, licenses used, and various contract terms. We ultimately received 213 usable contracts from 54 unique countries, and roughly 15% of the contracts were from journals that had a DOAJ seal. As you can see from the charts on the right side of our poster, most of the contracts we received came from university presses, a little over a third, and we had a fairly even distribution of journal subjects with slightly more responses from social science journals.
Great, so in the middle of the poster, you'll see some of our initial findings. We're still in the process of data analysis for the study and have much more to explore. So we found that within our sample, open access contracts can vary widely in their alignment with open access ethos, in particular with regard to the copyright retention of authors that was indicated or not indicated in the contracts. We found that DOAJ seals were a good, but not totally foolproof measure of open alignment, particularly with regard to author copyright retention. So as you can see in this top chart, 91% of journals with a DOAJ seal indicated explicitly in their contracts that authors retain copyright. However, only 50% of journals without a DOAJ seal did so. A full quarter of contracts without a DOAJ seal did not allow for copyright retention. So these are contracts that explicitly required copyright transfer to the journal or publisher. Only a couple of journals with a DOAJ seal required such a transfer. There were also a significant portion of journals without a DOAJ seal that did not mention or did not clearly indicate one way or another whether authors retain copyright. Below that, you'll see the most popular license types indicated in the contracts. It's unsurprising to see CC BY as the most used license type in these contracts, but close to a quarter of the journals did not even mention the license that would be applied to the published article. So we're hoping to dig more deeper into some contradictory terms that we've also identified being used in these contracts. For example, one would be authors retaining copyright under a CC license, but the contract also imposing detailed restrictions on author sharing. With this research, we hope to illuminate the global landscape of open access journal publishing contracts by enabling better alignment with best practices for open access publishing and identifying confusing and contradictory terms for authors. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Nice work. All right, we're going to move on to our last presenter for this block. It's Maria Gould.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here today to talk about POSI and the Research Organization Registry, better known as ROAR. This is a collaborative poster with Jenny Hendricks from Crossref, who's unable to be here today, and John Chibaki at CDL. So POSI stands for the Principles of Open Scholarly Infrastructure, first published as a blog post by Cameron Nalon, Jennifer Lin, and Jeffrey Builder. And this is a set of practical guidelines that organizations can follow to reinforce the trust and longevity of their infrastructure and also to be held publicly accountable to following them. So this session today is not a deep dive into all of the principles or an existential discussion about what is open infrastructure, but really my focus is on why ROAR adopted POSI and how we are trying to live up to it. ROAR, for those who aren't familiar, provides open infrastructure that helps to connect research outputs to research organizations through ROAR identifiers that can be used to identify affiliations in scholarly metadata. ROAR IDs are specifically designed to work in tandem with other pieces of our infrastructure, which is why they are being supported right now in DOI metadata and in ORCID. ROAR is a collaborative initiative led by California Digital Library, Crossref, and DataCite. And this puts ROAR in a somewhat unique position because it's not an independent organization, so we don't fit neatly into pre-existing categories of what we think of when we think about scholarly communication services or organizations. But we are still attempting to provide core infrastructure for scholarly communications, and we want to be taken seriously as we work to drive adoption of ROAR IDs throughout the research ecosystem. So ROAR signed on to the POSI principles because for us, they provide a useful framework to self-audit and self-assess against a set of best practices for scholarly infrastructure so that we can publicly signal that we are reliable and that we have a long-term plan for sustainability. We adopted POSI in December 2020, and when we did this, we released a public and honest self-assessment on the ROAR blog about how we measured up to the framework at that point in time. And so this audit was useful for ROAR in a couple of ways. It helped us to identify what was going well and what we were doing right, and it also identified areas for improvement when it comes to reinforcing ROAR as trusted and reliable and open infrastructure. ROAR has always been 100% open by default, and for that reason, many of the basic POSI principles are ones we were compliant in from the very beginning, like making the ROAR dataset openly available under a CC0 waiver. But POSI also outlines some concrete operational practices that are helpful for ROAR to aim for as we set ourselves up for the long term. For example, we now have a living agreement between our 3 collaborating organizations that outlines how we jointly operate ROAR and also how we will responsibly transfer ownership or sunset it if and when the time comes. We're also using POSI as a roadmap for ROAR as we work to increase the transparency of our operations and our governance structures, and as we work to implement fundraising and resourcing plans that will allow ROAR to achieve financial stability while ensuring that we can keep the registry data open for the long term. So for ROAR, as well as for other organizations, I would imagine adopting POSI is not a one-time thing. It's not about being compliant with POSI or not compliant. It's not a pass-fail test. It's really an ongoing process toward improvement and accountability. So I'll close by leaving everyone with a question in mind about how you or service providers might use POSI as a framework for evaluation of your infrastructure. I imagine that many of us are familiar with the recent news about Microsoft Academic's shutdown, to take one example, and similar ones about unexpected shifts in our infrastructure landscape. And I hope that the POSI principles may help us chart a course toward greater openness and transparency and reliability of our infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. All right, let's take a look at what questions we've got. Kevin, Yaroon, Melissa, Sarah, do you guys want to come back on screen? And any reactions that you have for one another are also very, very welcome. In the Q&A, the first question is for Yaroon. Micah, Chloe, is it okay to unmute questions, or is that too difficult?
Unmute another person?
Yeah, like Micah Vandergrift?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we'll do that now.
Micah, do you want to ask your question out loud?
Go right ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for taking my question. Yaroon, I had a question about libraries that are acting as publishers and wondering if you accounted for that in the study at all, and in what ways you might imagine that libraries that are doing publishing activities might align with your framework.
Thank you, Mika, for that question. Yes, of course, libraries can be publishers or can have publishing activities, and we would expect libraries to be perhaps a little bit more perceptive to these quality issues because they are mostly on both sides. So as a publisher, they are disseminating the knowledge, but as an organization, as a part of an institution, they are also consumers of that knowledge, and sometimes also the customers of services, of publishing services. So they should be more perceptible to these quality aspects, and that's why it is indeed interesting to look at those library publishers and work with them to see whether they can sort of make sure that they make sure that those 9 aspects that we listed, that they are responding to that. I hope that answers your question, Mika.
Chloe, can we keep Micah for a minute because he wants to put a question to Kevin as well?
Yes.
I really don't mean to hog the conversation. Everyone else should submit questions also. But while we're here, Kevin, I was just wondering about the if you or the students in your work addressed the big idea concept of research communication. I'm thinking about like plain language summaries here as an aspect of open science that they might be really comfortable with or that they might utilize.
Yeah, that's a really great question. And we touched on it in the initial workshop, but not maybe to the level that I realized was needed. So in that workflow diagram in the center, when I gave feedback on each stage, that came up every single time because students were communicating in a non-plain language way. And so we ended up having a number of discussions about how they could take their research justification or their methods and make it more understandable to a broader set of audiences. And so as we incorporate the second year of this program, I've developed an entire module devoted to it so that they can practice it in the workshop before they actually do the assignment itself. So it wasn't something that came naturally to them, which I think I was surprised about, but it is something that we acknowledged and it got better as those assignments went along. So, great question, thanks.
Thanks, Kevin. Okay, for Dinesh and Bernhard, I'd like to try and come back to your question and your exchange at the end, if that's okay. Just focus on this set of presentations for the time being. Let's do one more question if we can. Lauren Collister, would you like to ask your question out loud?
Feel free to unmute now if you'd like to.
All right, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, please go ahead.
All right, great. So for Sarah and Melissa, I was curious about the all rights reserved and no license information subsets of your data. From what I understand, these are in the DOAJ, that's where you got your data set, right? But this seems to conflict with basic acceptance criteria for DOAJ. And I wondered if you had any sense of what's going on there. What's happening with these? How did this happen? Or is that something you're going to investigate in the future? Thank you very much.
Yeah, Lauren, thanks so much for your question. We're definitely going to need to do some more investigation into that. And yes, it's correct that all of these journals are indexed in the DOAJ. That was our criteria for including them in the sample. So I think there's potentially a few things going on. I think we didn't look at websites. We're looking at contracts and agreements themselves. So it's possible that information on the journal website could conflict with information that they have in the actual contract. We also received a sizable proportion of responses from journals saying that they either don't have a contractor agreement with authors or they don't know what a contractor agreement with authors is. So I think there might also be some issues around confusion in terms of what really needs to be in those documents and what purpose those documents serve as well. I'll let Sarah add anything if she wants to as well.
Yeah, I would just add that, we have to really look at, as Melissa said, what the contracts say versus what they potentially put on their website. And I think that those conflicting sort of statements are the most interesting. I would hypothesize, we need to look into this more, but I'd hypothesize that some of these contracts were actually closed access journals that were potentially converted over to open access, just because they contain a lot of the same language that we tend to see in subscription-only journals, but perhaps the contracts haven't been modified to really show that new sort of language. So this is definitely something I am excited to dive into in the coming months.
Thanks so much, everyone. Really great presentations. Thank you. Thanks for bringing them to OASPA. Let's carry on the discussion on Slack. I'm beginning to run us down on time now. So we're going to do Mandy, Emma, and Kathleen, and then grab a couple more minutes for questions if we can. So, Mandy, you ready to go?
Yes. Hello, my name is Mandy Brannon. I'm a project manager in library relations at Duke University Press. I'd like to tell you about the journal Demography, how the Population Association of America and Duke University Press converted the journal to open access, and give you an update on our progress towards supporting this journal. Demography is the flagship journal of the Population Association of America. In 2021, it moved from a large collection sold by a for-profit commercial publisher to a fully open access model published by Duke University Press. For the category of demography per journal citation reports, demography is #1 in citation ranking and #2 in impact factor in its social sciences citation index category. You can see some of the article titles on this poster. Demography's articles align with the core values of Duke University Press to drive progressive change. The journal Demography presents the data of disparity, and it is an extension of our commitment to equity and inclusion. With this move to Duke University Press, Demography receives the benefits of being with a university press. Our mission is based on building strong relationships and quality publications. We offer high-quality publishing services ethically and mindfully, with a mission that aligns with university libraries. University presses are mission-driven, not-for-profit entities experimenting with open access monographs and journals. We care to ensure the scholarship and research produced at universities stay within the scholarly communications ecosystem. The first issue published with Duke University Press was released in February of 2021. We provided a seamless transition for the editorial office. Ongoing, we are working to remove barriers to access and submission and drive usage and discovery of journal articles. We hope to achieve break-even levels of financial support, and we aim to become a destination publisher for open access journals. The funding model for Demography is one of community partnership based on tiers of participation. We welcome support at any financial level, and we encourage you to partner with us. More than 75 institutions have become Demography community partners, yet we only achieved 32% of our institutional funding goal in the first year. In fiscal year 2022, we hope to expand our community of partners to help continue this project's sustainability. The funds we receive cover the journal's publishing costs and provide ongoing financial support to the journal's sponsoring society and its editorial office. We also want to make Demography's work openly available to the worldwide community of population researchers now and in the future, and we want to drive global usage and discoverability. All content back to 1964 is freely available at read.dukeupress.edu/demography. Thank you for your time today, and please visit our website and consider supporting Demography.
Thank you, Mandy. Emma, swinging over to you.
Great, thanks, Jennifer, and hello, everyone. Working with lyricists, we at the University of Michigan Press have been taking steps to develop a publishing program that aligns with our mission and commitment to equity, justice, inclusion, and accessibility. Based on these principles, the press is now transitioning to an open access monograph model we call Fund to Mission. Fund to Mission demonstrates a return to the origins of the university press movement and moves towards a more open, sustainable infrastructure for the humanities and social sciences. With this model, the press aims to convert at least 75% of its monographs to open access by the end of 2023 without any author ever having to pay. The press is working to build a sustainable model by achieving stable funding for this monograph program from 3 sources: annual funding from the library community, recurring funds from the University of Michigan Provost, and other funder payments. By committing to one of 3 packages, libraries support the conversion to open access of at least half, or roughly 45, of the University of Michigan Press scholarly monographs in 2022. And we will expand this percentage if we realize our full goal, and will continue to build on it in succeeding years. Libraries who purchase a package, which I'll detail in a moment, will also receive the unique benefit of perpetual access to the remaining restricted access frontlist titles and term access to the backlist, or roughly 1,700 titles, which will otherwise remain closed to non-purchasers. Finally, libraries will also support the author's ability to publish innovative digital scholarship leveraging the next generation open source Fulcrum platform, which we're developing at Michigan. The 3 packages available for purchase include the individual front list, the transitional collection, which is the 2021, 2022, and 2022 front lists that can be purchased upfront or billed yearly, and the backlist bundle, which is an upfront purchase of our current complete backlist years, 2012 through 2020. With Fund to Mission, we are asking not only for shared investment in strengthening humanities and social sciences scholarship, but also infrastructure. Through a transparent model that fits with existing library workflows and provides unique benefits to supporters, our goals are to expand inclusive, equitable access to high-quality humanities and social science scholarship for diverse global audiences, increase the number of accessible open learning resources for students that are instantly available, downloadable, and free of DRM restrictions, expand the demonstrated opportunity for increased visibility and impact that open access provides to all our authors, and to demonstrate support for nonprofit infrastructure and a sustainable business model on a platform that already hosts other university press content and collections. So far, we have received additional funding from the University of Michigan Provost for this fiscal year, and we've had a number of libraries sign on for the transitional collection, as well as signed an agreement with the Big Ten Academic Alliance. We've been working to continue developing the Fulcrum platform in line with the needs of our community, with a particular focus on how to make this open content as discoverable as possible and how best to represent the reach and impact of our open access work. We recently implemented a beta dashboard of the Open Access ebook usage data trust and are the first university press to do so. We have a busy fall ahead with plans to kick off a library advisory group in the coming weeks. And next month, we'll be launching a new site for Fund to Mission, including more information about which titles are going open, why, progress on our funding goal, and more details like that. With this model, our key value is transparency. We want folks to understand the decisions we're making, why, what it costs, how much we're raising, and some of that information that is not always very easily found for models like this. I'll point out the link at the bottom of the poster here, and I'll share it in the chat so folks have a chance to kind of take some better look at some more information on our site. But I appreciate your time and welcome your questions in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. All right, Kathleen, you're going to take us out today, please.
Thanks, Jen, and hi, everyone. My name's Kathleen Shearer, and I'm the Executive Director of CORE, which is the Confederation of Open Access Repositories. And I'm going to be presenting today about a project that we launched in July called the Notify Project, which builds on our Next Generation Repository Initiative. And the aim of this project is to develop a standard and interoperable approach that will link reviews and endorsements from different services with the research outputs contained in the distributed network of preprint servers, archives, and repositories. Our project will really help to scale the publish then review model, which many of you have heard of, because what it will do will allow any compliant platform or service to be able to communicate with each other. So our goals for the project are to enhance the role of repositories in the scholarly communication landscape, to develop a decentralized model that will decrease dependency on only a few centralized services, to increase the sustainability of scholarly publishing by decoupling the publishing functions across different platforms and institutions, and ultimately to lead to greater inclusiveness and bibliodiversity in the system. Now, I want to give you a very concrete example of how this protocol works. So an author will deposit a paper into a preprint server or a repository and request a review from a peer review service, which will be transmitted via a linked data notification. The peer review service sends back an acknowledgement and then will decide whether they want to review or not that article, and will send back another linked data notification, either declining to the review because it's out of scope for their journal or accepting to review. Eventually, once the review is produced, the review service will send a link to the review to the repository, and the repository can post the link to the review on their landing page. So where are we at the moment? We are working now with several early implementers, and we hope to have at least 2 reference implementations available by October. And we're going to start our second phase of implementation in the winter with a number of other organizations. And I'd also like to say we have some really great minds and really good, solid technical expertise that's helping to guide the development of this project. So, you know, we're really excited about the potential of this approach to really transform scholarly communication because of several important characteristics that it brings to the landscape. First, we're using, you know, widely adopted standard web protocols. We're not developing any new technology. Second, we're adding value to the existing landscape. Our approach is platform and service agnostic. It can be adopted already by the existing players in the network of content providers and services. And thirdly, this approach really has potential to be used in many, many other contexts and scenarios. For example, linking articles with data sets or linking research outputs with CRIS systems. And we are at the moment also investigating some of these other use cases. So once we've established and stabilized, shall we say, the peer review use case, we can begin to look for other opportunities to use this technology to support the needs of the broader community. So I welcome you to visit our website to follow our progress on this project. Everything is going to be made available to the community as we progress. And thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Kathleen. All right, let's take our last couple of minutes for questions and comments for our last round of presenters. So we've got Mandy and Emma and Kathleen. Do you want to turn your cameras on and see what questions we've got?
No, if there are no other questions, I'm happy to answer it. So he asked, in what ways are the press shifting skills or support people to prepare for and advance this fund mission program? Honestly, my role is very focused on this program for the library side of things. We luckily were just able to hire a new director of sales, marketing, and outreach that was kind of on hold for a bit during the pandemic. She'll be very helpful in pushing this forward. But I would say a lot of our workflows aren't changing just because we're not publishing a greater number of titles each year. So we're just kind of adapting the folks and kind of some of that's already in place. So I wouldn't, it's definitely busy, but I wouldn't say that right now we're at the point where we have to necessarily hire more folks. I think we're trying to anticipate what this looks like and thinking through how this will be sustainable, what might need to change, but those are still conversations that are happening. So we'll be sure to share updates on that. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to reflect that there has been a little bit of discussion. Kim and Lauren have been pesky in discussing and sidebar. So Mandy, do you mind just sharing a little bit about that exchange, or Kim, just for the benefit of the other listeners here?
Sure. So Lauren was asking how the journal demography came to the press and, what made them interested. And we were able to make a proposal to flip it to open. It was a subscription-based journal at a commercial publisher. And, usually a university press is not going to get a journal from a commercial publisher unless we do something bold. And so, our proposal included flipping the journal, which was bold for us and unique the other publishers that they were speaking with. So that's really what attracted them to us is, wanting to be with a mission-based publisher.
Super. Thank you so much, everyone. Again, please carry on the discussion. Not everybody's signing off and going home now, so do keep on talking on Slack. We are closing our first day, which I think we just launched like a rocket ship. It's really fantastic, the momentum behind the conversations here. So thank you. Thank you to all of our poster presenters, our lightning talk presenters, and everyone from our panels earlier today. See you on Slack. You can find the posters on the Slack as well. This is a couple reminders to add your location to Mentimeter again, because that is quite cool. Do take a look at the program for day 2, which starts at 12:30 p.m. UK, 7:30 a.m. US Eastern Time, and we're going to launch tomorrow with another keynote speech from Dalmeet Singh Chawla, who's a science journalist here in the UK, speaking to science journalism, preprints, and COVID-19 reflections on those. A final thanks to the conference sponsors who, again, have helped to make it happen, make the conference happen, and also to support participation from people who are otherwise unfunded to come. So really difficult to express the energy here, but let's pick it up again tomorrow, and I will look forward to seeing you. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and see you on Wednesday.